Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lina, and today we are going to be talking about Narcissist. You're watching part 3 of the series about Narcissist. Today, the topic of the video is how to spot a narcissist, behavior, control, and what to do. This is part 3, the final video in our Narcissism series. In this video, we are looking at the behavioral patterns, the control tactics, the isolation, the workplace, and family versions of narcissism. And we will end with something practical, what you can actually do if this applies to you in your case. Let's talk about the behavioral and social red flags. This is red flag 22 in our series. I call it the isolation tactics. Gradually, the narcissist will work to shrink your world. It rarely begins overtly. For example, early on, they will start making comments about your friends. I don't know, I just think she's not a good influence on you. She seems kind of toxic. You start seeing that friend less and less. And then it's another comment about another friend of yours, and your social circle starts to shrink and quietly narrow. They get sulky and quietly distant when you spend time with your family. Not aggressive, just enough that you start to wonder if it's worth the atmosphere when you get home. You start to create situations where spending time with others becomes logistically difficult. Making plans on evenings you usually see friends, booking things without consulting you, needing something from you at the exact wrong moment. They frame your relationships with others as threats. I just feel like you're always choosing other people over me. You eventually start apologizing for having a life outside the relationship. After months and months of this, you realize your friendships have atrophied. You've cancelled so many times that people have stopped asking you. And now the only person you can really talk to is the narcissist. Their goal is dependency. The fewer outside relationships you have, the fewer people can reflect back on what's actually happening. And the harder leaving becomes, which is their goal. Red flag 23, triangulation. Introducing a third party, real or implied, to create jealousy, insecurity, or competition. For example, they mention casually but repeatedly that a colleague finds them attractive. She keeps flirting with me. It's a bit awkward, honestly. This is mentioned enough to keep you slightly destabilized. They can compare you explicitly or implicitly to their ex. My ex used to love that kind of thing, or she would have never reacted to that like that. He was so easygoing. They're vague about their whereabouts in ways that are designed to trigger your imagination. And then they accuse you of being paranoid when you ask. They post something on social media that seems directed at someone. A pointed quote, a cryptic caption, and when you ask about it, they say you're overthinking. Or maybe they have intense, slightly opaque friendships with people of the gender they're attracted to. And when you raise any concern about how those friendships are described, you are accused of being controlling. Triangulation keeps you off balance and competing. The person you're competing with isn't the real threat. The dynamic is. Red flag 24. Public face versus private face. In public, narcissists are super charming, warm, generous. In private, they're cold, dismissive, or cruel. And no one would believe you if you told them. For example, at a dinner party, they are a perfect partner. Attentive, funny, making sure your glass is full. In the car on the way home, they tear apart everything you have said, every person you spoke to, every way you embarrassed them. At a family gathering, they talk openly about how great of a team you are together. The next morning, they're icy and you don't know why. When you try to confide in a friend about how things are at home, your friend says, "Really? But he's so lovely. You two seem so solid." You feel invisible. You start wondering if you're imagining it. They say something quietly cutting to you in a social setting, under their breath with a smile, so no one around you notices. Plausible deniability, always. The double face is one of the most isolating tactics and aspects of a narcissistic relationship. The public version is who everyone defends. The private version is who you actually live with. My favorite red flag 25, using your vulnerabilities against you. They encouraged you to open up. They created intimacy by asking about your fears and your wounds. Later, that information becomes leverage. For example, Let's say early on in the relationship, you shared with them about your fear of abandonment, something rooted in your childhood. Later, when you challenge them, they say, I think you need to work on why you're so insecure. This goes back to your parents. It's designed to destabilize you and end the conversation. On another occasion, you shared your anxiety about your body image. During an argument, they make a comment about your appearance that lands right on that wound. Or you confided with them that in the past you struggled with depression. When you get upset about something they did, they say, I'm a bit worried about you. Are you doing okay mentally? This reaction is not normal. This is arguably the cruelest pattern on this list. They used your trust as a map and then navigated that map against you. Red flag 26, financial control and exploitation. Money is a tool of control. It limits freedom. Let's say they borrowed money once, then again with vague promises to repay. Bringing it up is made to feel petty. I thought we were a team. They insist that finances should be combined, but then manage to use those combined finances entirely. You are asked to justify the expenditure. They're not. They spend recklessly on themselves, on luxury, status, and the resulting financial stress falls disproportionately on you. They subtly undermine your career. Do you really need to work that many hours? That job is stressing you out. Is it worth it? Making you financially dependent on them increases their power. If you try to leave, the financial entanglement, shared accounts, shared debts, shared property is used as a structural barrier. Financial control is coercive control. It is in many countries legally recognized as a form of domestic abuse. Red flag 27. Rules for thee, not for me. The standards they hold for you are not the standards that they apply for themselves. For example, they require you to be at home at a certain time, or tell them where you are. They give you no such information about their own movements and find the question controlling. They're furious when you cancel plans. They cancel plans on you with a text and expect you to be fine with it. They expect complete honesty from you. They, on the other hand, tell small and large lies regularly. They require patience and understanding for their difficult moods. They have no patience for yours. When you point out the inconsistency, it's rationalized. That's completely different. You know why I was like that. Don't compare those things. It's different. The double standard is never acknowledged, only defended. Red flag 28, hoovering. We have to talk about this. After a discard or when they sense you're pulling away, they return. The name comes from the vacuum brand because they suck you back in. For example, you've ended the relationship. 3 weeks later, you get a message saying, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I know I need to change. I started therapy. I miss you. Or they send you something that triggers nostalgia, a photo, a memory, a song you both loved, with a short loaded caption, thought of you. They create a crisis, real or manufactured, that requires your help specifically. An illness, a family emergency, a problem, or they reach through mutual friends. I'm really worried about them. They seem really low. Have you talked to them? Hoovering often works because it arrives at the point when your grief is peaking and you most miss who they were at the beginning. But you have to understand, the person at the beginning was a performance. The one who contacts you is the real one, and that's the difference. Now let's talk about workplace and family narcissism. Red flag 29. The narcissistic boss. As most of us know, in professional settings, narcissistic traits are unfortunately common. And in positions of power, they do wide damage. Very often, narcissistic bosses take constructive feedback as an act of aggression and ensure there are consequences. Never directly, but always plausibly, deniably. They make decisions impulsively based on what makes them look good, with no concern for the team's workload or well-being. When the team is burnt out, they say, this is what success requires. They're visibly warm and collaborative with those above them in the hierarchy and cold or condescending to those below. The contrast is stark if you watch over time. If you have a boss like this, just know that what you're experiencing is not a management style. It's a personality pattern. And you have to realize it won't improve by working harder or being more accommodating. The narcissistic parent, red flag 30. Now, this is one of the most complex and painful manifestations because it shapes identity and attachment patterns from the very beginning of your life. For example, they use a child's achievements as a social currency. Every performance, grade, win is talked about in terms of how it reflects on the parent. When the child fails, the parent takes it personally, and the child feels that. They never apologize. When they've done something wrong, they reframe, minimize, or wait for the child to come back and reestablish warmth, which the child will do because they need their parent. When the child starts to succeed as an adult, a relationship, a career, or sense of self, there is subtle undermining rather than pride. Because for the narcissistic parent, the child's independence is experienced as a threat. As adults, children of narcissistic parents often struggle to recognize manipulation in relationships, have poor boundary setting, and carry deep-seated beliefs that their worth is conditional on their performance. If you grew up with a narcissistic parent, understanding that pattern is some of the most important work you can do, not to blame, but to trace. On to our next red flag, 31, the narcissistic friend. Friendships with narcissists are characterized by a fundamental imbalance that is often invisible when you step back. For example, they call when they have a crisis and you listen for 2 hours. When you have a crisis, the call is 15 minutes and pivots to their advice about their similar situation. They remember favors they've done for you. They don't remember favors you've done for them. When you're doing well, there is a faint coolness. When you're struggling, they're warmly present and they're the first ones to come rescue you. Your difficulty unconsciously is more comfortable for them than your success. When you create distance, they either pursue dramatically, I don't know what I've done, but you've clearly decided I'm not worth your time, or discard entirely and turn mutual friends against you. Narcissistic friendships are exhausting in a way that's hard to articulate because individually, nothing seems that bad. It's the cumulative pattern, the consistent imbalance that tells the story. Now, on to our last part, what to actually do. Don't diagnose, recognize patterns. Your job isn't to label someone as a narcissist. Your job is to notice. Is this consistent pattern or behavior hurting me? Focus on the impact. Let go of the diagnosis. First of all, trust your nervous system, always. Your body keeps score. If you feel anxious before seeing someone, relieved when they cancel or leave, confused after most of your conversations, or like you're permanently walking on eggshells, those feelings are not irrational. They're information that you have to listen to. Stop overriding them with, but they're not always like that. Get an outside perspective. Narcissistic relationships distort your baseline of normal. You need outside mirrors, a therapist, a trusted friend who will be honest with you, a support group, people who have no stake in the story you've been told. Be specific with them. Go through every example because they can be difficult sometimes, won't actually communicate what really happens behind closed doors. I call this the grey rock method. If you must remain in contact with them, co-parenting, a family member you can't cut off, a colleague, this method is one practical strategy. Make yourself as unremarkable as possible. Give short, neutral, factual responses. Share nothing personal, no personal weaknesses, no sensitive information. Express minimal emotion. Be boring. Narcissists feed on reaction, emotion, and information. Deny them those things, and you become a less interesting target. And the most important thing that I want you to remember is you cannot fix them. This is the hardest thing to accept, especially if it's your friend or a parent. Your love will not heal. Your patience will not transform them. Your understanding will not fill the deficit. Deep structural personality change requires the person to recognize the problem and commit to sustained, difficult therapeutic work. That's rare. And it's not your responsibility. You cannot pour yourself empty trying to fill something that has a hole in it. If you are in the process of leaving a narcissistic relationship, please remember, it will likely get worse before it gets better. Narcissists often escalate when they sense loss of control. If there is any risk to your safety, please speak to someone who can help, a professional, a charity, someone you trust. You're not overreacting. You don't have to justify leaving. Please remember, it wasn't always bad is not a reason to stay. Now, this is the end of the series. Over those 3 videos, we've covered more than 30 red flags. If any of this has resonated with you, if you watched all 3 and recognized your own life in them, I want to say something directly. What you experienced was real. The confusion, the self-doubt, the exhaustion, the feeling that you're never quite enough. All of it was real and none of it was your fault. I'm going to leave some resources in the description to this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on Instagram or my email. Like, subscribe, follow, and reach out to me if there's anything I can help with. I'm always happy to answer questions. If this series has helped you, share it. You don't know who in your life might need it now, but someone probably does. Take care of yourselves, and thank you so much for watching.